Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first meeting of the Risk and Insurance Committee for 2025. I hope you all had a fabulous and restful break. Can I just start, now that it's in the public domain, by saying what a privilege it is to be associated with a council which has achieved so much in terms of the council mark results. I think all of you can be incredibly proud for the change that you've been able to bring about in the last few years, led by Mayor Max, the councillors, and of course Tanya and her team. So very well done. I think you should be incredibly satisfied with what you've been able to achieve. So well done. Okay, let's turn now to apologies. I think we've got everyone here that should be here. I don't think we've got any late items. Does anyone have any conflicts of interest that they want to declare that isn't already on the register? Okay. Let's turn now to the minutes from the previous meeting, which was just before Christmas, the 18th of December. Does anyone have any questions that they want to raise or any changes that they wanted to seek to those minutes? Councillor Jeffries.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, just a couple of quick questions. Under the, I think it's on page, where are we? Page 11. The heads of agreement, Waikato Water's done well. Second paragraph, third paragraph, about Taumata Arewai, reducing arrowhead rules, supply schemes to stock only. Has that all been, what's our current position with that? Has that all been confirmed? Are we able to ask?
The minutes. So the current, I've actually detailed this in my report, I think, but the current situation is we're progressing with the closure as far as fulfilling the Local Government Act and the requirements from Te Mara Harawai. So we've already had a public meeting, which was the next step. The next step in the process now will be on-site assessments, which we're currently working through. So it's still very much still
in train, in progress, on as expected.
Yep.
Good, thanks, Mark.
Work in progress, yeah. Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Just one other one under item 80, which is on page 12. I don't know whether it's appropriate to ask this question or not, but the second paragraph, Graham advised a number of reports representatives of the committee and also LDC on the Ōtorohanga Kiwi House. Has there been an update on the situation with the Kiwi House at all? Are we able to be apprised of that?
Yes, there is, Councillor Jeffries, and we will brief council the meeting.
Great. Okay, thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Kurt. Yeah. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so we will confirm those as a true and correct record. That's moved by Councillor Prendergast and seconded by His Worship. Okay, let's turn now to the first item, which is item 81. This is Noah's Health, Safety and Wellbeing Quarterly Report. Noah, good morning, welcome, thank you for your report. The recommendation is simply that we receive the report. Now, I'm going to take this report as read. I'm going to ask you whether there's anything that you wanted to add to this, and then I'll go to questions. Is there anything, Noah, that you wanted to update us on?
Not at this stage. I think it's covered that.
Great. Colleagues, any questions? I've got a couple. Councillor Jeffries.
Thanks, Your Worship. Yes, under item 4.6, you've listed the critical risks due for review.
Yes.
It's just probably a silly question, but we have talked previously about the use of chemicals and so on at water treatment and so on plants. Is working with chemicals considered to be a critical risk at all?
It hasn't been outlined as a critical risk at this stage, so hence we also need to do a review in terms of just doing an annual review. And once we do that, we look at what the controls is
a critical risk, or does it become a critical risk?
Right. Okay, thank you. And 4.10, under the heading audits, that sentence states that 4 more expected to be completed by the end of February. Were they completed?
So one was completed, and then there were 2 more that are booked for this week, so they weren't completed by the end of February. One wasn't on the cards, and that was the Garfield Water Treatment Plant. So we just worked with the Health and Safety Committee to make sure that's up and running a bit more. So we spoke about that at the last meeting. So we're working away on that.
Okay, thank you. And so are the 10 planned audits, are they all planned to be completed before the end of when? This financial year?
So what we're doing is the 10 audits is there's 5 sites that we're doing monthly. So those are the 5 sites. So we will be doing these sites monthly at this stage to make sure that we're keeping up to date. So yes, there will be audits completed at this stage.
Okay, thank you. 4.15, the aim is to have all staff come in completed or booked on the compulsory training by the end of April. So are we on target for that?
Yes, we're on target. Might even be able to achieve that earlier.
Right.
So that's the goal at stage, but right now we're still aiming for April, but the achievement.
And 4.17, staff have been offered optional ARD and CPR training. So what's been the uptake on that? Have you had a good response to that?
Yeah, we have had a good response. We were going to hold 2 sessions, but unfortunately, because we're working with St. John, they couldn't make multiple days,
Yep.
And some people couldn't make themselves available for their session. So we're looking to hold another session later in the year, as such, to capture those staff as well.
Okay, and 4.21, you're saying 20% of contractors, relevant contractors, have completed the pre-work for health, safety on work. Mr. Chairman, I thought that we discussed health and safety so on previously with contractors, and I thought it was actually a prerequisite for appointing contractors. Is that not the case?
Well, I haven't been able to find a process as such around that, but we are going to make it a process. So what we're looking at is that contractors who obviously not just office space are going to make that a prerequisite to have completed.
Right. So we're working towards
We'll work towards that.
Okay.
I must say, Councillor Jeffries, I thought the same. I thought this seemed a little low, no? Given that the whole point of having a pre-work program is to save you time and to save them time and therefore to save money. So if it wasn't a process for absolutely support and being a process now, this makes a lot of sense. So what would be helpful, and Kathy, if you could take a note, when we do our next update, Noel, would you mind giving us a number in terms of how we've managed to scale up that the percentage of contractors that have completed the pre-work?
Absolutely.
So we can track it.
Yeah.
That'd be great, thank you. Councillor, did you have any other questions?
So that was it. Thank you.
Councillor Hughes, did you have some questions?
Yes, I did. Thank
Cool.
you, Chief.
Hang on, here we go.
Thank you.
4.3, I see about tiredness in December from the staff, as far as health and safety is concerned. Who monitors the staff for this sort of thing, like tiredness? I mean, is it a self-reporting type sort of system, or somebody out there actually keeping an eye on it?
So there isn't necessarily a reporting system. It's just general wear and tear of their point, so that our staff need to escalate to their manager if they're tired, if they're having stresses in their personal life that may affect their work as well.
Okay, that's fine. Cool.
Sorry to interrupt, Councillor Hughes. We've got an EAP program, no, don't we? So that the staff have actually got access to confidential support should they need it.
Correct. Yes.
Excellent. Councillor Hughes.
4.4, the incident with the contractor. They state whether the contractor was actually involved in the incident or was a witness. Is that what was the incident?
The contractor was involved in the incident, hence why
just thinking, well, was he the first on the scene in an incident, which he would conceivably report anyway if he was involved in that part of it. No, that's fine. 4.9, the drug and alcohol policy review.
Excuse me, Councillor, if we could just deal with that, if you wouldn't mind me asking a follow-up question on
No,
that,
you're fine.
because that was one of the questions I wanted to
Oh,
ask.
sorry.
So, no, there was obviously an incident happens. It happens. Were there any lessons learned, any changes that you proposed to make to process or system? Or was it this just an accident?
It was just an accident. What had happened was the contractor was driving safely and the other vehicle had come across the line and swerved them. So that was the member of Parliament's bad.
Okay, thank you, that's really helpful. Sorry, Councillor.
No problem. 4.9, drug and alcohol policy review. Has something been identified in the current policy that's triggered this review, or is it just a standard review?
The policy is expired and it's just due to be updated, but also noticing that we haven't had pre-employment testing, so we need to make sure we stand it up and make people aware of what we're doing in that space as well. So I just want to stand it up.
Just I haven't looked back through the policy. It says do we have random testing done at the moment?
No, we don't do random testing.
No. Will that be enacted?
At the current view, we would look to enact that. The reason being is that there's a lot of risk carried in random drug testing, and looking at our staff, we don't consider it to a great risk. If we're operating somewhere, say, for example, in an environment which I'm thinking something like they're working with fire and they're doing that, then there might need to be that in forestry, those sort of areas, but in our current environment, we don't see it as too great a risk in terms of that. We can manage it through just monitoring our staff and doing visual checks if we have reasonable cause.
Will there be some scope to include that in the future, though, I presume?
Yes, so we'll put it in the policy and there, but we can act if we need to.
Cool. Just following on from Councillor Jeffries before, it's good to see compulsory training is dragging on nicely in a timely manner. That's excellent. It's just
Try.
sooner the better. Great. Yeah, thank you, no.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Prendergast.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, I thank you again for your report. I think most of my questions regarding the contracts have been answered in discussion, but with 4.23 and 4.26 with the juries, alarms and testing, etc., will elected members be part of this process at some stage?
We can absolutely include you as part of the jury's test. So what we currently do is that we do it when council is not to disturb your meetings as such, but we can actually include that because it's not those. But yeah, we can look at.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Okay, there being no further questions, we'll move to receive the report, moved by Councillor Jeffrey, seconded by Councillor Hughes. Thanks, much appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay, so our next report is the quarterly risk report. Graham, thank you for the work that you've put into this. Is there anything, Graham, that you wanted to particularly draw to our attention before we get into questions?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. I guess at this stage I'd just like to probably a quick summary of where we're at with this. This report is still in the development phase. Both Rebecca and I have been working with our risk consultant David Robson from Aon in developing this report. I guess tried in an effort to meet the requirements for this committee. And as I said, yes, it's the first step of a journey. The only other thing I'd really like to probably highlight is around the risks, emerging risks for the water reforms, which would be through that in a little bit more, more detail if the committee requires.
Okay, thank you. Questions? Councillor Jeffries.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Yes, on page 23, Graham, there's a paragraph there about the internal audit function. And at the conference that we went to Wellington last week, the week before, the OAG gave a presentation and their emphasis was on value. What are the value of audits? But there was no mention of costs involved. And I guess the question was, I support the use of internal auditors, but will internal auditors reduce our overall audit costs, or is it going to make it even more expensive for us to provide value to the community?
Yeah, that's actually a really good question. So the joint contract that we've signed through CoLab for the PwC internal audit function, there's no charge for us unless we actually use the service. You know, so we've only just signed that contract. I just signed it yesterday. So if we start off with PwC, we'll have an interim meeting with us in terms of what they can offer. There's also other, I think, internal audits that we can undertake ourselves. You know, just for example, we did Rebecca did an internal audit on our water billing processing. And so you would like to think that some of those internal audits would save less processing time for our external audit. Our processes are better and our checks and balances are better. But it's quite hard to quantify. In reality, it probably doesn't. Just makes less management difference.
If I can make a point from my own experience, I think that while there is some value in the context of internal audits relative to the cost of external audits, I think the greater value is actually that at their best, internal audits lead to business performance improvement, because it's a great opportunity for people internally to cast a good eye over what's being done, how it's being done. And that's going to be even more important in circumstances where, as the scope of council operations decline in the context of horizontal assets, like, for example, water and possibly roads in the future, that its responsibilities are going to be cast across a smaller cost base initially. And therefore it's going to be even more important for councils to be even more efficient in terms of doing more with less. So I'm a big fan of internal audits because a wise chair once said to me that the best thing to do is always to ask hard questions of yourself. Because if you ask hard questions of yourself, you've got nothing to fear from anyone else. So I think that internal audit is a huge benefit, so long as it's used wisely. So great question, thank you.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, Mr. Chairman, and I guess the follow-up to that would be really, we're not going to be faced with a situation, though, are we, where the auditors are then going to come in and try and audit what the internal auditors have done, because that was the situation with our valuations, wasn't it? So that was, I guess that was where it was leading, was that it's all very well having the internal audit function, which I totally support and agree with, but all I'm more interested in what it's going to cost us if we go down that track, and is the external auditor then going to come in and try and audit what the internal audit has done?
Yeah, I think it's unlikely we would engage PwC to do an internal audit that was covered by the external auditor. I was just thinking of one that come to mind 2 or 3 years ago. We contracted KPMG to do a payroll audit for us, which is something that our external auditors would have covered in that level of detail. You know, it was more around, are we paying holiday pay correctly, that sort of type of stuff, which kind of gives you some assurance.
Good answer. Thanks, Graham. Anything else, Councillor Jeffries?
Well, sorry, yes, there was one other question. It was on the chart on page 24, under the heading, the assessment criteria was consistent and the last sentence in the first box says a dedicated risk manager or equivalent is appointed. Are we suggesting there that we're going to actually take on another staff person for that role? Or is that function going to be handled internally with existing staff?
Yeah, it's going to be handled internally with existing staff. Councillor Jeffries, so because we've employed external risk consultant at a pretty nominal price. That's a 2-year contract. So what we're hoping is that between myself and Rebecca, that we'll upskill to a certain degree that we can deliver the services that we need for a small council like this, and it's developing a risk culture. Rebecca and I are off to Wellington tonight to the risk management conference, which is hugely exciting. And so we hope to become not experts, but I think between us and also with having Ross there as well, we can certainly without employing any extra staff.
And sorry, and just one last question, if I may. On page 26, the very first risk category, every liaison on obligation to honour the treaty, we've got the inherent risk there as extreme. Why is that considered to be extreme?
Yeah, we've got the, and I'd like to actually go through this in a bit more detail, Councillor Jeffrey. So where we've got the options between the enhanced status quo and what it would have done well on, the inherent risk and the current mitigated risk is straight from our strategic risk assessment. So that's as it is now. So the inherent risk is extreme if we don't engage with our iwi partners, but we have mitigation in place to reduce that to moderate. Right. Yeah, that's existing. That's where we're at now, and that's where we've got this risk assessment was done by was done externally, wasn't done by council staff. So they've just carried over the enhanced status quo, the existing strategic risk matrix.
No, that's
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Just a couple of questions. I'd be keen for David, if it's possible, Graham, to attend the next meeting. I'm interested in the risk maturity exercise that's been done. It's not what I typically see. Typically, I see a risk maturity exercise being done on a per risk basis. So I'm not for a moment suggesting that David is wrong. I'm just really interested to understand his perspective from a risk maturity perspective, because typically my understanding is that risk maturity reflects the confidence and preparedness of the organisation in terms of dealing with each risk. So I'd be really keen, if that's okay with you, to have David to come along and explain.
Yeah, more. I mean, the maturity assessment that we did was just more sort of a sense check across council's leadership team. So I guess get an understanding of our risk culture within the organisation, and so it's a self-assessment. So and it only went across our leadership team, and I guess it came back with a couple of areas that we know we can improve, particularly around I guess using systems and that to track risks, and around improving culture. We believe we can improve that, but he thought that even with that self-assessment, we were about at the level that you would expect from a small council.
Okay, thank you. And then the second point is on page 27 in relation to financial loss internal. There is the statement that post local water's done well, the residual organisation will have significant stranded costs. I did not understand that to be true. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, I mean, we've still got to do that analysis. That work still has to be done, but I guess at a high level assessment, it was my understanding from a financial point of view that we didn't have significant stranded costs. Purely because, and Tanya often explains this, is that it might be our payroll person's one arm, or it's not like we've got whole staff that are devoted to water and wastewater.
So that's a statement of potential rather than actuality.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. Look, Graham, we're conscious of the fact this is we're on a journey. We've started the journey. This is a great start. So thank you for the work that you've done. I think it would be great to get David to the next meeting as we move on to the next iteration of this. So thanks for your efforts today. So we'll move that this report be received, and that'll be moved by me and seconded by Councillor Prendergast. Okay, let's turn now to the capital projects report for the end of February. Mark, welcome. Thanks for your report. Mark, is there anything that you wanted to bring us up to date with or draw to our attention before we get into some questions? I've certainly got a few.
No, I think just to sort of summarise this report, it's probably a report more based around assurance rather than risks at this stage. We're sort of very early into our capital program for the first year of the LTP.
That's a lovely distinction. Well done. That's a really important point you're making. It's the difference between assurance and risk. Very important.
So although I've sort of highlighted a few minor risks in there, I suppose the guiding decision out of this report is to provide assurance to the Risk Assurance Committee that we are on track, slightly behind in a couple of areas, but not substantial at this stage to be worried at all.
Okay. Having said that, 2.6 indicates a degree of concern about the state of your resource, perhaps to the end of the year, on capital delivery with local water's done well, advancing rapidly.
Yeah, and that's mainly around the senior management. So at the moment, a lot of my time is spent in the local water done well space, where previously I would have spent more time in the oversight of the capital delivery. So that is a risk, and obviously the extra workload that's on top of our normal workload presents a risk to staff.
So just a follow-up question in relation to that, Mark. As I understand it, this council will make a final decision on April the 8th. Is that correct, in terms of whether it will pursue enhanced status quo or local water's done well? Is that correct?
Correct. So we are aiming to put a preferred option out for consultation on April the 8th. So that's when the decision will be made on the two options.
Okay. Does your work get easier up to that?
I think that's a second phase. So we'll probably change from getting to the preferred option to how we're going to deliver the preferred option.
Right.
So that's a second phase to the work where we'll start moving from the consultation through to getting our water service delivery plans in place by the 3rd of September. So no, I don't think it will slow down.
Does it get me too hard?
Correct.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Mike. Does anyone have any other questions? I've just got a few more. Okay, so...
Sorry, through you, Chair, if I could just add some clarity to the decisions, just to make sure that that's super clear. So council will decide on what their preferred option is for consultation on the 8th of April.
Right.
The final decision as to which model that we go for, I'm just scrolling through here with me, will be on the 24th of June.
Okay, that's a really helpful clarification. Thanks, Nadia, I appreciate that. Okay, so Mark, at 4.6, you said that there are a couple of projects that were deferred to the next year due to insufficient funds. Forgive me, but surely these projects were budgeted.
Yes, correct. So that was in relation to a couple of the other treatments needed more funds. So we've had to apply some more budget to those projects, which has meant deferring the two other roads as mentioned in there. So it wasn't a matter of lack of budget, it was probably the extra cost involved. Well, I think from what I understand from the roading manager is when they actually started the rehabilitation on one of those sites, they didn't have the pavement level they thought.
Right.
So which required additional costs.
Okay, that's great. But I guess the bottom line is we, as you always, to your credit, start off with in 1.1 of your reports. This is all about outlining any material risks. Your point is there are no material risks that are currently in your vision.
Correct.
Great, thank you. Councillor Hughes, a question?
No, thank you, Jen. Mate, thanks for the report. It's always great reading, as usual. First off, I'd just like to say congratulations to the team for consistently meeting the consents compliance for the wastewater plant. I mean, although there's been a few issues in the past, it seems like you got on top of them, so that's great to see. Just go down to 4.8. Securing an experienced team leader for the waters team. The challenge for you by the looks of it, so you're going out to the second round of applicants. If you still don't find somebody suitable, what are you going to do about that? I mean, it's is there a I'm just going to put this out there. Is there a scope for a promotion from a current team member with a bit of training or anything like that? Is that an option that you perhaps? I mean, it's obviously not having a leader in that space is a risk, because it even harks back to what I said back in the health and safety part of it. You know, you need somebody on the ground monitoring the staff, and like that tiredness sort of thing back in December and those sorts of things. So, how are you going to work your way around that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we've decided to go out for a third round of recruitment through our normal processes. We did do a review of the job description prior to the third round, just to make sure that it did articulate the staff we're looking for. Because it's quite a, being in a team leader role, as you would appreciate, it's quite a challenging role, because you've almost got to have a foot in both camps. So it takes a specific set of skills and experience to sit in that role. So we took a look at the job description and thought maybe we weren't hitting the mark with the original first two rounds. So we've made some changes to that. Options from there, I think, would be potentially a recruitment agency. That might be an option we've pursued before in some of our harder to fill roles. But at this stage, we're hoping with the adjustments we've made, we might get some interest from other candidates. So it's not that we're not getting interest, it's just finding the right level of skills and experience. It's been a challenge. So
you don't necessarily have anybody within the current team that could step up to that role. So just through that skills matrix.
probably at this stage, we've definitely got staff members that are developing to that point, but not at the moment to meet that next step up, because this role is effectively a operational role plus a manager role. So it's having that level of experience would be key. In the future, maybe he's...
Great, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jeffries.
Yes, thanks, Mr Chair. Yeah, I had the same question as Steve, actually, or Councillor Hughes, so you've answered that, Mark. But the other one that I just wanted an update on 4.24 under resource consents. How's the seawall consent going for Aotea? No issues there?
So we've just had a review of the final conditions. We've gone back with some feedback on that. We haven't had any response from Regional Council yet, but I would like to think the discussions I've had is that it would be complete within this week. So I'm
next week, 10 days. Okay. And just a comment, I don't know whether there's any truth to it, but we were talking about the seawall as one does, sitting around having a quiet beer the other night, and one of the points that was raised by a resident around here was that when the seawall was first constructed, residents were told that if they were going to have any building renovations, whatever, within 50 metres of the sea, they needed to use stainless steel bolts and nails and all that sort of stuff. And they just thought it was a bit ironic that this particular job doesn't seem to require the same requirement, if you like. Do you know if that's true or not? I mean, are we putting in galvanised or other types of fittings, bolts, whatever, that perhaps are not going to last as long as the stainless?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think possibly the requirement around stainless steel and fasteners on properties or dwellings that are built in steel is probably a building and code matter. The seawall, of course, we're generally talking about the rocks or the armour, so we're not working in that sort of space around the actual fasteners. So, yeah, I mean, the steps, I think previously in the past they've been built galvanised. That's probably just down to a decision for us to make whether we use stainless steel or galvanised. Again, it's slightly different to the building code that the homeowners are probably required to meet when they're building structures.
Okay, great, thanks, Councillor. So, I think we're at a point where we can receive this report. Mark, thank you, as always.
Sorry, just one more. Through you, Chair. Mark, a great report again, thank you. Just for my personal benefit, what is a wet cell? In 4.19?
Yeah, it's probably it's probably a little bit of jargon actually, so my apologies. So that's where we do our coagulation on the tertiary treatment of the wastewater treatment plant. So down at the plant we have what we call our dry cell, which is where we have all our sort of like wetland plantings, and then we have our wet cells, so which is just a pond-based treatment. So yeah, that's apologies there. I should have probably clarified that.
That's fine, just environmentally exciting, so that's great. 4.6, is that Waipapa Road, the Ōtorohanga Waipapa Road?
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Councillor. Okay, so we'll receive this report moved by Councillor Hughes, seconded by Councillor Jeffries. Thank you, Mark. Okay, so the next couple of reports, Graham is showing great bravery in presenting these. Let's turn first to the outstanding management letter reports. Anything that you wanted to add to, Graham?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair. So, yeah, firstly, just to Brendan, I wouldn't say he sends his apologies, but he's frantically he's frantically trying to crunch numbers, getting ready for the council workshop tomorrow on our three water scenarios. He's been working most of the weekend on it, so I volunteered to present his reports today. Yeah, just I guess in terms of the outstanding management letter points, we're using the traffic light system, so the green items are ones that have been addressed. The orange items are those that are currently being addressed and should be completed at the time of the audit. And there's also 4 items that we had said that we weren't going to address. Although one of those, looking at it now around formalising the process for identifying and managing legislative matters, I think we can probably actually almost address that now. The work that we've done, which I'll present in this workshop, includes this meeting. So, yeah, happy to take any questions.
Questions?
Yes, Mr Chairman. Top of page 37, Graham, under the right-hand column March update, that sentence, I just couldn't make sense of that sentence. It says the access rights have been amended. Many finance managers now able to sign off these reports as they cannot make any changes. I didn't quite grasp what was trying to be said there. Who's they? They cannot make any changes.
Yeah, I just need to clarify that with Brendan.
Yeah.
Jeffries, so
Yeah,
sorry,
grammatically, I just couldn't
Yeah.
quite grasp that one. So sorry to raise it.
I'll come back.
Thanks. The only other one I had really was on page 40. Again, top box, the March update, it talks about the fair value assessment we provided the committee at the 30th of June meeting. I'm just wondering whether it's sort of almost last minute stuff. Is there any reason why June's been picked? I'm just wondering whether we needed to advance that by at least a month or something, just to give ourselves a bit of leeway in case something happens.
Yeah, I mean it's effectively just the reconciliation. So
Yeah.
Much easier to do that reconciliation close off on the 30th of June.
Sure.
And we don't have to do it again anyway.
Other questions?
No, that was
Great. So Graham, we seem to have made no progress in 3 months on closing out these things. So we got a report in December which said we had 16, we've done 5, we've got 7, we're still in the same position. Are we going to get this done are we going to get these items completed by the start of the next audit?
Yeah, reading the comments that Brendan has got there, there's no indication that these won't be completed by the end of the financial year.
And in terms of the 4 that we're not going to address, were those 4 items that we said we would address and we've now changed our minds? Or did we always say to the auditors, these are not issues that we're going to deal with now?
Yeah, that's the letter, Mr Chair. So these were 4 items that we said we were not going to deal with.
Okay. All right. Let's see what progress. When's our next meeting, Kathy? Is it March? I was going to say, is it March? It's actually now March. June. Okay, thanks, Kathy. All right, so hopefully we've got full close off by June, Graham. Okay, anyone else with anything else in relation to this particular report? Okay, so we'll receive that report. It's moved by Councillor Prendergast and seconded by His Worship. Let's turn now to the outstanding debtors report. Teresa, welcome. Teresa, and also Graham, I struggled with this report. It's kind of like being stuck in a snowstorm. There's a flurry of data, but I don't have a foggy clue whether you're happy with where we're at, whether you're sad with where you're at, whether you think you're making progress or not. And Graham, I wonder if we could change the format of the report. By all means, give us the data. What I'm really looking for is particularly insight from Teresa as to, I'm happy with where we're at, even though the numbers may be higher than where they were this time last year. Of course, blah, blah, blah. So I really want to know what you think. It's always useful having you here, but in advance it would be really helpful to know what you think. Are we making progress? And if we're not, what do we need to change or to make more progress? So if you pick something like that, it's change the format of the report. But Teresa, I wonder if I could get you to talk to each of the areas of your report and just tell us whether you think you've got some issues. If you've got some issues, that's cool. How are you addressing them at the moment? So over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As far as the debtors go, I think I'm really happy with what they're doing and what our process is. We are getting good results from those. I think it's just that they're a little bit fudged with that one development contributions. So if you took that out, you would find that they would sit pretty nicely.
In comparison to this time last year is what you're saying?
Yes, oh,
Right.
definitely, yes. It's just that one invoice that's really fudging it.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
As far as the rates go, I think this year we've been very proactive as far as the abandoned land and rating sales. So the abandoned land at this stage, we've had no response to the settlement figure given, and I've been advised by Debt Management Central that they will be processing to the next stage, which is an application to the High Court.
Yep.
And same with the rating sales. They are due also to be moving on to their next step. Just as an observation, the notice of sales that we are getting in have increased quite a bit. So that's people moving out and people moving in. And it seems to be a lot of people from outside coming into the Ōtorohanga District Council area. Some of them have probably been quietly on my radar at the bottom, which sort of says that obviously that's the sign of the times and that's what people are doing. And I think that is also helpful as far as like the movement will be within the rates as they decrease. We're at the stage now, right now, is that second invoice is gone, the instalment 2 has gone out and that is now closed off. So I will be pushing hard.
Okay.
So,
But,
yes.
but to the bottom line from your perspective, and we know how successful you've been, the bottom line from your perspective is that you've got no concerns about the state of the rates debtors at this stage.
No, I don't.
Excellent,
Thank
thanks.
you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, so let's move on to the next item then, Teresa. So we've dealt with rates and water. How are you feeling about that?
Yeah, water I think also is also fine. Like I think it was mentioned in here that we had the timing of the invoicing
Yes.
with that, but I think the finance administrator said to me this morning, oh my gosh, you would have seen the pages of payments that came in over the weekend.
Excellent.
So that was really good to hear that, and that won't be reflected in these.
Okay. So again, from a water perspective, you're comfortable with the state of the debtors ledger?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Does anyone else have any questions they want to ask? Brian, thank you.
Yeah, just before we go to questions, Mr. Chair, just a couple of things. There is one error in this report that I just want to point out in the executive summary. So it's where it says November, it should be November's 24, 2.443 million, which then ties in with 4.1 below. And the other thing, just a verbal update on item 4.7. So as at 27th February, we said we had 4.2 million of rates outstanding. So obviously the penalty date is the 28th of February, so when this report was written, there's a huge block of payments that get on penalty date. So that figure is now 1.98 million.
Okay. So that's $1.98 million worth of rates that are now attracting penalty rates.
Yes.
Is that normal?
Um,
I mean, is that kind of scale normal? Because the penalty rates are fairly chunky, aren't they?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there'll be a chunk of those people that'll be on direct debits. So, so
That's right.
Yeah,
You don't include those in your...
automatic
well,
payment.
they've got to the almost the end of the financial year to pay. So that would account for the majority of that, I imagine.
Yeah, so those are the automatic payments. Yeah, so
as long as they pay by the 30th May, any penalties that they've had in that rating year will be remitted
Okay,
under a policy,
All right.
rating policy.
okay. Thanks, Teresa, that's really helpful. Does anyone else have any other questions in relation to this? Councillor Jeffries.
Just one, Mr Chairman, thank you, and it might be a difficult one to answer, but when, if council decides to go with the CCO in terms of water, and the assets and associated debt and everything is taken over by the new entity, will that debt also include water debtors?
Mr Chairman, I think from what I understand, that is the understanding that I've had, that if the entity goes, it's everything. That's the debtors. That's from my understanding.
Right, so
The water debtors.
Yeah, my take on that would be, if it's water debtors, it's debtors are just effectively an asset, so it would just form part of our whole assets and liabilities split. If the water debtors stay with council and we're expected to collect debt, then it has to be part of the asset and liability split. But I think, those finer details are yet to be.
I thought it was an unfair question, but I just wanted to perhaps raise that point because that's always been an issue for me, was to make sure that the whole process is as clean as we can get it, and the fact that ratepayers aren't left still paying water to us.
Yeah, I guess the other side of that is effectively we've already accrued an income on that debt.
Yep.
As well, so.
So that'll go across as well. Yep, okay. So one balances the other. Yep. No, that's fine. Thank you very much.
Good, thank you. Okay, Councillor Hughes.
Sorry, Chair, Teresa, just about the ratepayers on direct debit sitting at 30.9%. Is there any reason for resistance from a lot of ratepayers to going on to direct debit? Do you get that? Do you get any feedback on that?
Basically, they don't want us to be in control of their money.
Okay.
So I think in experience with people out there that have had direct debits with other companies, that they just take their money and, when it's due, and I think some of their experiences have not been good.
That was a trust issue.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's any reflection on us, but I have noticed. And, like with a direct debit, you have to know yourself the money's going to be in there.
Yeah.
And I think these days people are pretty on borderlines with finance, and if they don't have the money, the direct debit will still happen and they will get charged fees from their bank.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. But are those the people that also have trouble paying the full rates amount? Yeah, I would have thought so.
Good, thanks, Councillor. Anyone else? Okay, so on that basis, I'll move and Councillor Prendergast will second that we receive this report. Teresa, thank you very much as always. And if we could just note that change in the report for future, because we're always keen, yes, we want to know the facts, but we're really keen to have the kind of conversation we just had with you about how you're feeling about the state of the debtors ledger relative to what you've seen in the past. Wonderful, thank you very much. Okay, Kathy, I think we deserve a bit of a break. Okay, so let's take a short break, and then in fact, we probably can close the meeting now, can't we? So on that basis, because we don't have any public excluded, we'll close the meeting, we'll take a short break, and then we'll get into a workshop on legislative compliance. Excellent. Thank you, everyone.